Well, good evening, friends. Welcome to Friarside Chat. I'm your deep fat friar, Pastor Andrew. You know, friends, sometimes it's hard in our lives to be joy-filled, especially when we find ourselves surrounded by things that didn't turn out the way that we wanted. Sometimes it's hard to express what we feel on the inside. Our guest today is someone who has recently garnered great internet fame. In fact, you've seen him in everything from Little Mermaid to The Last Supper. He's someone who's going to share with us how he responds to the environment around him. Will you join me in welcoming our special guest today, Mr. Barry Santor? Mr. Santor, are you there? Are you there, Mr. Santor? Well, we must be having some sound issues with Mr. Barry's microphone. While the team in the field gets that worked out, I guess I can tell you a story of when I was a young friar, also known as a fry baby. A group of friars and I were gathered in one of our classes. We were to have a special speaker that day. He was from Paris. He was a very well-respected French friar. And when he came to the class, I wanted him to feel very welcome. So I worked and I worked and I worked on a phrase to say in French that would welcome him to our school. The day finally came. I marched up to him with all boldness and excitement, and I said, "Bienvenue de Coco." The French friar looked at me with shock in his eyes, and suddenly he began to laugh. I didn't understand. It hadn't gone like I wanted. The French friar looked at me and said, "I believe what you meant to say was Bienvenue de Coco, which means welcome to our school. What you actually said was, welcome, you coconut." The whole class started to laugh. I went back to my seat, sad and dejected. I had wanted so badly to express to him a welcome, and I had failed. Oh, I was so saddened. Wait, what's that? The team in the field says that they've got everything fixed with Mr. Santor's microphone. Let's go back to him and see what he has to say about those times that our hearts don't come across as well as we'd hoped. Mr. Santors, are you there? Are you there, Mr. Santors? Well, I'm not sure what to say to him. He seems upset. I wonder if I did something. Well, back to the story. As I sat down in my seat, I was so sad and dejected. My fellow friars, they were all laughing at me. It was then that we all learned a very valuable lesson. The wise French friar quoted a verse from Jeremiah, chapter 17 and verse 10. It says, "But I, the Lord, search the hearts and know the motives." He said to me that he appreciated the time and effort that he knew it had taken for me to look and to speak in his language. He knew that my heart was to make him feel welcome. Oh, I hadn't gotten everything right. In fact, from my perspective, I had gotten it wrong. But what had been expressed to him was exactly what I wanted. He felt welcomed and appreciated it. You know, he said, sometimes it's hard for others to understand our hearts, but that we can rest in the fact that God knows them. God knows what we mean, even when we don't say anything. What? Hold on. Are you sure this time? Okay. My producers are telling me that there's some movement with Mr. Santors. Let's go and see what he has to say. Mr. Santors, what do you think of those times when our hearts aren't always expressed well through our actions? Well, friends, I don't know what's going on in the mind of our friend, Mr. Santors, but I'm confident that God knows. And you know, friends, you and I can learn a lot from that. Sometimes in our lives, when the outside seems to be struggling, when we're having a hard time, and even our hearts are in turmoil, it's in those times that God doesn't judge us by what's on the outside. He judges us on what's in our hearts. Our love and trust in Him, even when everything around us seems to be shaking and falling apart. God knows our heart, and He promises that He'll stay close to us. Well, I say we give our friend Mr. Santors one more opportunity and see what maybe he might want to say to us as we close out our time here on Friarside. Mr. Santors, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Well, Mr. Santors, I hope that you have a great week. Thanks so much for your time and for joining us here on Friarside. Friends, this week, regardless of what happens, regardless of what you feel on the outside, know this: God knows your heart and He loves you very much. Will you join me this week as we give grace to those that we encounter? Maybe the outside is falling apart, but we can show grace to their heart. Thanks so much for joining us here on Friarside Chat. As always, I'm your deep fat friar, Pastor Andrew. We'll see you next time.